Hey everyone, I just found a part. I'm so grateful to be seeing it, so I wanted to share it, especially because I find examples so helpful. And while it's present, while I'm currently seeing it, is when I can see it the best. And so I wanted to share that this is a part I was noticing in my life that I might, when I procrastinate or I don't do certain actions, for example, I noticed I had not enough time between certain meetings, reoccurring meetings. And the first time it happened, I said, oh, I didn't realize that my first meeting is going to take more time. So I need to move it a little bit to allow for more time so it doesn't run into and past and like during into the space of my second meeting. So the first time it happened, I said, oh, okay, now I see that. So this is a recurring meeting. The next time it comes around, I can be prepared and I can, in advance, have moved it up a little bit so that there's adequate time in between each meeting so I can be present and ready. And I didn't do it the second time it happened. So I said, okay, well, for sure, I now know it very clearly and obviously. And of course, if it happened twice and I felt the pain of it twice, of like being not fully prepared for the second meeting, and that was uncomfortable, that discomfort is happened twice now. So for sure, the third time, like, I'm gonna succeed at moving it. Because I value being present, I value being on time, I value being ready and able to hold space and to engage fully from a present state. So my values are in line with moving, like providing adequate time in between these meetings. So for sure I'm going to do it because it's in my value system and I've experienced the discomfort of it going the opposite direction twice. But I didn't, and it happened again. And so I found a part, so I realized that there was a part that's in charge of taking the actions of getting onto the calendar, moving things around, reaching out to people, communicating about rescheduling or about planning for more time, having the conversation if they're okay with it, finding the time that works for both parties, like taking all those little steps. The part that was in charge of taking steps, that's like in charge of doing the action, I saw it as a part that was in charge of like flipping a light switch. And so then I went and talked to it, and it was like, so this is the one that's in charge of doing the actions. All you have to do is flip the light switch to do the action, to get the action done, so that the self and all the other parts who all agree that we value certain things, we want to live and act in alignment with them. And that part couldn't because it was so overwhelmed, and it was like kind of thin and like shaking from like flustered and nervous and like overwhelmed. And it was just like totally frazzled. And it's like, oh, okay, so it's really frazzled. And I noticed that it was like in a room full of light switches. And it was like, I have so many to do. And then it just started, even threw its clipboard down and started just like listing. I have this and this and this and this and this. There's so many things on my to-do list. I can't, like, and so instead of like flipping the switch, it was like too frazzled, too overwhelmed, and started going on and on about all of these lists. And then I saw it in a river, and there were like balls floating down the river that I needed to catch before they passed them. And there were way too many balls at once, so any human couldn't like grab it, and then grab the next one in time, because while you were grabbing like three others passed already. And the part was so funny. It was just like, you see? It's not even possible. Like, I can only do so much. I can't do more than what is possible to do. And this list of all these things is more than, it's impossible. I can't do them all. And because it was so like overwhelmed and frazzled with the weight of all of that, it couldn't calmly say like, okay, I'm not gonna be able to do all these light switches, so I'll just select, a handful, and I'll do those and then see if I can do more. I'll just get going and see which ones how many I can get through. And it's going to be unfortunate that I can't do all of them, but that's just how it's going to be. And so I'll just start doing the ones, I'll just do as many as I can do. Like, it couldn't do that either. Like, it wouldn't end up flipping many of the light switches because of the state it was in, of like the pressure. And so then as I got to know it more, I realized it felt extreme pressure because of a lot of external expectations. Should I share it here? Yes, I will. I'll be this vulnerable, this transparent. So I'm filming some videos to share some content for an upcoming program, and this part says like, there's gonna so many expectations externally. People are gonna have the expectation that the lighting's perfect, the audio's perfect, my hair looks perfect, the way you talk is perfect, the examples you gave are perfect. Like, there's so many expectations, like it's gotta all be perfect, and the part's like, I can't do that. Like, I can't deliver all of like perfection and all those things. So if I just do what I can do, like just catch as many balls flowing down the river as you can, and other ones you can't do it, like that's just, it's not possible. So you just do whatever's possible, and that's gonna have to be good enough. It says like, no, if I just do whatever I can do, like what if I put it out there and then it gets rejected or criticized? Then the part's like, oh, ouch, like, no, that can't happen. We can't let that happen. So it's like, the only option is we have to be able to do it perfectly. Like, we have to be able to meet all of the expectations, because we cannot let that happen of like, I do what I am able to do and it gets rejected. It's like, no, not an option. We're gonna need to figure out a way to meet all these expectations. And so I had noticed when this part surfaced, I recognized it, the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da part. That's something I've seen and experienced in myself previously. And I'd noticed I saw my timeline of like my history of all the ways I've tried to meet and manage that. Of like, I've come up with lots of really, really great strategies, of like ways to manage and strategize to be like, okay, let's practice the skill where I say 1, 2, 3, and then I just pick one thing I'm gonna do, and I just focus only on that one thing, and I start doing that task until it's completed. Or when I start feeling overwhelmed, I leave the house immediately and go for a little walk in nature down to the end of the street and back, and I come back, and while I'm feeling refreshed and light and no longer overwhelmed, I pick one thing I'm gonna do and I start doing it. Like, I noticed I have like to manage this happening in my life, because then the part ends up doing like none of them, or like most of the light switches don't get flipped, and then I end up in situations that are opposite of my value system of like being late or unprepared for a meeting. So that's like the outcome of what this part helps create, is that I end up acting in ways that are opposite of my value system, and things end up not getting done. But I noticed that strategies are helpful, but if this part doesn't get unburdened, the issue will remain, because this part being in its frazzled state, only getting a few things done, because most of the time is spent feeling overwhelmed, then like and any other part that's not burdened with this burden would be able to flip way more light switches. So the presence of this part's angst and burden is the root of the problem, and if it doesn't get unburdened and healed, it doesn't matter how many strategies I have, like it's still going to be a recurring big impact in my life. I also noticed another way that it surfaced was in school, in high school especially. I didn't like writing papers, and this part because I wanted to meet the expectation of like everything that could go into a paper, all of the wording, all of the things you could do that could make it fantastic and amazing, and then it would just get paralyzed, and it's like, I can't do that. So then literally it would not accomplish much of the paper, like maybe some outlines, and it was like drudgery. It was like so much. I was like dragging myself to like write the outline, like review the outline. Like this is so much work, so horrible, like under the burden of this. So then the deadline would come and I'd have to be like, okay, just submit whatever I have. And it would not be good. It would be like, yeah, it would not be a very good paper. But like the deadline would come and like that's all I had been capable of doing, and I like it was no longer an option to like work on it anymore or like struggle over it anymore, because the deadline came and the indecision had made the decision. And then I would also like be so mad at it that I'd write it off. I'd be like, I don't even care. Just submit whatever I have, and then we're gonna be done with this. I'm never gonna look at it again. So I noticed that without this part and its dynamic present in my life, I would more easily be able to work on something, be okay if it's not perfect, and add to it as you go along. But this part would like not be able to do it, like hardly at all. It would be so overwhelming, it'd be so shocked that something would finally need to make the decision of like, it's time to post this video to YouTube, or it's time to make the decision on something else in life. And instead of like being able to come back and revisit it or maybe edit it or add to it, I wouldn't, because at that point my whole system would be so mad at it. It'd be like, I'm never gonna look at that again. I'm so over that. So I'd be able to like do more things easily, sooner, be okay if they're not perfect, and then improve them improve them if they needed improving along the way. So that would all be so great, and I would get a lot more things done, including like work related or like health related things that like really matter, you know? Anyway, okay, so coming back to this part. So I realized that it was putting other people's needs above mine. It was taking on the weight of lots of external expectations or perceived or imagined expectations. And it was carrying the weight of that. And that is too much. Like that literally is too much. And any new potential external expectation it came across, it would add to the list of like, if it took, so this part particularly doesn't like taking marketing classes. It does not like hearing people say, you've got to have adequate lighting for your videos for them to look professional, or to provide a professional service or session to a client. It needs to include these things, and they can be basic things. Like, it's true, like lighting, or that the audio is clear enough to be able to hear it. Like, those are legit things, but it could not handle hearing them. It would get so mad. It would just get so mad. Because it would, some part would buy into immediately any expectation it ever heard anyone say, ever. And so it would be so mad at the experience of hearing more expectations because it immediately created a weight on top of it. That would be impossible, that I would never be able to measure up to. That would only cause more angst and procrastination in my life. So isn't that funny? It makes so much sense to me now. Like going to like marketing classes or reading marketing material was like death. It was just like, I'd put it off for months or years. Like I would avoid that situation. So then why on earth is this part taking on so many external expectations instead of not caring and be like, whatever, I'll just do whatever I'm capable of doing and I'm going to be okay with that. And if it doesn't meet someone's recommendation, oh well, that happened, too bad, it didn't meet the recommendation. So this part views, whoa, come back. This part views it views like the external judgments or perceptions as being able, as having the authority to determine where I'm at, especially like adulting, like adult. Like that's one of the things it said. It's like they determine if you're an adult or not. Like they determine if you're intelligent, smart, valuable, I don't know, whatever, like anything. So then it felt like if someone could say review your business or your services or your anything you create or do, and say, oh, yeah, the lighting here is not professional grade. Like, it's not. If you can look over here at this example of a picture or video with more lighting, that's more professional than this. The part would take it as like, they have the power to determine if I am an adult or not, and they just gave the ruling that I am not. So no wonder it couldn't just let it go and be like, oh well, like, yeah, sure, if I could choose to implement or adapt to an external criticism or not, whatever, I'll still survive, I'll still be me, I'll still have created something that has some kind of value. Like, no, like if my me being an adult, me being valuable, me being intelligent was wrapped up in that, no wonder it couldn't make the judgment call either. That frantic part that's in front of all the light switches, it couldn't say like, oh, okay, all right, you know what, these are too many light switches, so I'm just gonna pick 10 and go flip those ones. And then if there's more time, I'll do more. It couldn't make the judgment call either, because that's such a huge job to be in charge of making the judgment call on things that could determine like your worth or your standing or your value. Oh man, no wonder it was so flustered. All right, so I'm gonna go spend some more time with it and help it unburden. I'm excited about that. Just wanted to share that for anyone, if you can relate. Man, I love working with parts. I love seeing them because it totally makes sense. Like, once you see the picture, you're like, oh my gosh, anyone would be, feeling crushed under the weight of that burden. No wonder I didn't get around to like flipping the light switches or like getting these tasks done. That's very preoccupying and heavy to be trying to manage this job. Okay, so now I'm gonna go find where, if I need as much information as I need to know in order for it to be able to heal and integrate, why it bought into the belief that external expectations verify if you're an adult or not, or if you're valuable or not, and then I'll go unburden the wound. All right, there you go, guys. It's awesome. It's so awesome that we can heal in things that felt impossible and so crushing and so hard to do. It doesn't have to be that way. It's not actually permanent. We can change, heal, and shift, and things that weren't accessible to us before can be. I'm looking forward to that. Oh, and isn't it great that life surfaces it for us? If we go about engaging in life, then any of these blocks we have will totally rise to the surface, and they'll be obvious. We'll be able to see them when they do. And that's another thing that was coming to mind, ironically, this past week, that kept coming through my mind of triggers are such a blessing, or trailheads, as IFS calls them. The moments that bring something to the surface of that big emotion, that big block, the fear, the belief, whatever you're experiencing it as, or just the inability to move of I can't move, I can't get this task done. Whatever the experience is of the trigger, it's such a blessing, because now that it's come to the surface, you can see it, and then you can interact with it and help it heal. I know a common first reaction to getting triggered is I don't like this. I'm feeling a big feeling right now, a big emotion, and this is wrong. I'm not having a good day now. Now my day's ruined. I'm having a bad day because I had this big emotion come up and overwhelm me. I don't appreciate that. I don't want that to happen. That ruined my day. Instead, it's fantastic. I can't heal what I can't see. Thank you for coming to the surface. Let's get to know you. What is it that you need to tell me? What do I need to understand? What do you need in order to heal? Let's heal you so that piece of my psyche can get added back to me, and I can benefit from having it with me instead of it being locked away in a dungeon carrying this really heavy burden by itself. yeah, so it's good news. So trailheads and getting triggered is wonderful if we own it and acknowledge and like identify the trigger and then go meet it. Then it can be fun.